the supreme document or the supreme law of the land is the Constitution of Jamaica. And that Constitution says a man is innocent until proven guilty. Additionally, that Constitution gives everybody, every Jamaican, the right to remain silent if accused of a crime or accused of committing an offense. Good? So, the right to remain silent is not an indication of guilt. So, let me put on the ex-police act now, Mr. Vegas, and educate you and some of your followers them. See? Watch this. You have been pushing this narrative, this birth certificate, and somehow this birth certificate is supposed to prove that Bounty.
Do you know what, yeah? I really don't even want to chat about this one. This is a techie one. It's real tricky to have an informed conversation around what we're discussing right here, people, because what you just watched is a video that Mr. Vegas just published on his Instagram, right? So let me backtrack. Let me rewind a little bit. If you've been following on the channel, you know we've been covering the musical clash between Mr. Vegas and Bounty Killer. And so it struck me as I was listening to the diss tracks, and I said it when I reacted to the tracks. If you go back and watch the reactions, I actually called it out and I said, this battle, why are they battling? Why are they clashing? Because some of the lyrics that they're dropping sound, especially Mr. Vegas, sound way more than just a lyrical war. It sounds way too personal. And I asked the question, what was the situation? Now, you're going to have to forgive me for a moment, people, because am I a huge fan of Mr. Vegas's music? Have I checked for Mr. Vegas's music in the last decade? No. Am I a huge fan of Bounty Killer's music? And have I checked for Bounty Killer's music in this past decade? The answer is still no. So I say all that to say you have to forgive me for not being all the way aware of the situation and how deep this beef that ended up in this lyrical war, how deep the situation actually was, and the fact that there's real context to the things that they're saying about one another just highlights that point. So I wasn't ultimately aware, because I'm not a big fan of Vegas or Killer. I wasn't like, I listened to the tracks and I was like, that something sounds off. This sounds more than just music. Do you see what I'm saying? And this isn't a new case. This is going back to 2021 when Mr. Vegas first raised this. And he produced this document that we're looking at now, which is a birth certificate of one of his children. As you can see at the top, the name there is Rodney Basil Price, which is Bounty Killer's real name. And at the age at the time of birth is 21 years old. And the mother's name of the child, whose birth certificate this belongs to, the name is crossed out for legal reasons, because you can see on the right-hand side, it says that the age at the time of the birth of the child was 15 years old. Judging by the dates that are on this birth certificate, given Bounty Killer's current age and the name stated here, it would indicate that this birth certificate is from the year 1993, right? And it would indicate at the time of birth, the mother was 15 years old, and meaning to say at the time of conception of the child, she was 14 years old, right? Now, real quick history lesson, and again, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but to my understanding, the age of consent in Jamaica in 1993 was 16 years old. And where the initial grey area lied, and what some people were saying online when Mr. Vegas first raised this, was that the age of consent at the time was 14 years old. Now, according to, I'll show you a brief excerpt from a website here. According to this report, it was in 1988 that Jamaica raised the age of consent from 14 years to 16 years old. And it says, were the age of consent still 14 years old in 2008, the average Jamaican girl under 14 years old would not have been a victim of statutory rape, and her male partner would have been acting within the law. So this clearly states that it was in 1988 that the law was changed. So going back to our document, which would suggest that the child was conceived in 1993, that would mean the age of consent at this time was 16 years old and not 14 years old that some people online were trying to suggest in defense of Bounty Killer. So with this all being upstanding, and again, if I'm wrong, but I'm just going by the facts and the evidence that I can see, right? Then this is wrong. This is wrong. And again, the reason it's sensitive, right, is because you have to be careful not to offend people, especially, a lot of people would have been conceived where, their parents were a certain age or, considered a minor, and, the law has changed only quite recently in the late 1980s, right? And we know in different countries, the views on this sort of thing can differ, and kind of the cultural implications and stuff can differ. So me personally, I'm trying to be sensitive to not offending anyone who may have been affected by a similar situation. But with that being said, I don't think it's something we can sweep under the carpet and say, because we like Bounty Killer's music, this shouldn't be addressed. And I think the point that the policeman was discussing just then, ex-police Damien Harry, he was basically saying that a man is innocent until proven guilty. But my question is, if this happened in 1993, at what point is he going to stand in front of a court and plead his case and see if he's innocent or guilty? Because it's been a long time that's passed since this has happened. So that's the first thing. And also, his point was, a man staying silent isn't necessarily an admission of guilt, and every man has a right to remain silent. But as Bounty Killer being Bounty Killer and being a prominent entertainer over the years, you spoke out on many subjects and spoke out on many things, and it seems like this is the only one that you refuse to talk out on. Now, if you had an ongoing legal case that was active, I would understand it, but that doesn't seem to be the case here. So if a man, I'm just going by me, right? If a man accused me of a heinous crime and I know that I was innocent of that heinous crime, I'm talking about it. I'm setting the record straight, and I'm explaining the reasons why I'm innocent in that regard. So the fact that he's not prepared to say anything, I think, yes, you have the right to remain silent, but there's some things you shouldn't remain silent about. There's some things that need to be spoken about, and there's some things that need to be addressed. And in my opinion, this is probably one of them. So I think this is a lot bigger than the music battle. We've covered the 3 tracks that have been gone back and forth between Mr. Vegas and Bounty Killer up until now. Bounty Killer was teasing another track on his Instagram saying, I think it was called Murderation or something. You guys can check that out. I'm not necessarily inclined to cover the rest of this battle, because I think, like I said, it's a lot deeper than that, and it's a question that's been raised that seems to have been swept under the carpet. And not talking about something or having the right to remain silent does not necessarily mean you're innocent in all cases. So it's like, initially, like I said, I thought there was a grey area where it gets really techie. If the law of the land says the age of consent is 14 and you're a grown man and technically you follow the law of the land, do I agree with it is neither here nor there. Like, because I've grown up in a society where the age of consent has been higher than that, and so my moral compass has been set to that. And again, without the risk of offending too many people, that's where my moral compass lies. So I wouldn't be comfortable with it. I don't know. This is a deep one, people. This is a deep one. Like I said, I don't really want to go too much more on it. But what I will say is, until further notice, I don't think I'm really trying to check for this battle. I think this is a deeper subject. Is the authenticity of the document real? I don't know. I can't say one way or the other with chess. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Because I don't know. All I'm saying is, based on the documentation and based on the evidence, if it is true, then it's done for Bounty Killer. I'm sorry. Music aside, entertainment aside, it's not a good thing. Like I have to be sensitive to the girl or the woman, what she now is, that was affected, and her family. Like I don't know the truth. I'm just saying this thing feels off. It's bigger than the music. It's bigger than the battle. I'm not even trying to get into the battle thing no more. Like, I hope anyone who was affected by this, or anyone around the world, or anyone who's watching who's been affected by similar things, God bless you all. And yeah, I'm just gonna leave it there, people, man. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Live 25, we're out, people. Love.